Good to see you again. Yeah. So, as the Ambassador said, we have a short space of time for questions, and worked on 4 with the audience and the potential investors and investors here and people from Kenya. So first of all, I wanted to ask you about a bit more detail on the 4 pillars. This is really underpinning the prosperity and the growth that we're seeing in Kenya. Health, food, manufacturing, housing. Could you talk a little bit more about the role and opportunities that businesses can play as part of that prosperity in those 4 pillars, please?
Let's start off with housing, given the fact that we were together, with some of you at the stock exchange when we were launching the green bond. I think you will all recognize, and many of you know, that Kenya has a huge, huge deficit in terms of housing, especially middle, low-income housing. We believe this is a challenge, and as I said before, it is one of those challenges that creates an opportunity. I stated before, you go to Nairobi, you find a lot of the old, established, middle-income estates, places like Buruburu and other places, the structured estates that were developed. These were developed in conjunction those days by the Nairobi then City Council and with the support of DFID, CDC. So what are we saying today? We're saying today that it is possible with government facilitation for us to be able to give land and to work in partnership with yourselves for you to construct and to help us provide housing units. We're working on trying to establish how that funding can be done in a secure way. And there are some issues that DFID again is helping us work through in terms of the necessary guarantees that maybe some of you may be looking for to de-risk investment. But the greatest security, like I'm saying, is that demand far outstrips the supply of the houses that are required by Kenyans. We're trying to deepen the mortgage market. These again are areas that we're looking at, which then helps us provide the financing that especially first-time homeowners require. If you look at the health sector, we acknowledge fully that as a government that is trying to achieve universal health care, we're not going to be able to achieve that without partnership with the private sector. We have worked out a number of different arrangements with a lot of providers. For example, when we got stuck in terms of things like X-ray machines, dialysis machines, equipment like that, I called on the private sector and I said, can we structure a deal that helps us get these services up front and we will pay you over time? And we had companies like GE come on board immediately. We had companies like Siemens, all sorts of different. It's just that they never looked at that model before. They wanted you to buy off the shelf, but wait a minute. We said, through our budgetary process, we can support, but we can't support the upfront money. And we've got a lot of companies now providing services on that basis. So again, huge opportunity in the healthcare and the health provision sector. Food security, again, if there is a country that understands that governments don't provide food, it is private farmers, it is Kenya. Here is another area where tremendous opportunities exist, and you already have a number of British companies that are in that particular field operating in Kenya and who understand it and who know it well. I was having a session with Diageo just a few minutes ago, and we were talking about some of these things. Not that, beer is food security, but they, as a result of their plant in Kisumu and the investment you just heard mentioned here, they've managed to engage and give security to over 17,000 new farmers. Huh? New farmers, 17,000. So that's a farmer that's growing sorghum, which he would ordinarily, if he had grown, he would have grown a little bit for his busa, we call at home. But now he's growing it commercially, he's earning money from it, he can support his family. He'll buy food, he'll buy the onions and the tomatoes and everything else, so long as he has the cash. So these are just some areas where I'm saying that as much as we are targeting the issues affecting the daily lives of our people, there are also tremendous business opportunities that come out of us being able to achieve these goals that we have set out for ourselves. I don't know if I've answered your question.
That's fantastic, Your Excellency.
Another one?
Yes. One of the things that we've touched upon is sustainability, and it was amazing to see the Green Bond launched in collaboration with the London Stock Exchange. We've also seen you push forward some of the most amazing policies globally in terms of plastic reduction, and when you put a total ban on plastic bags. I mean, this was way ahead of other countries that are supposedly leading the charge, and Kenya has taken that forwards. So there's clearly huge opportunities and a willingness from the government and yourself for sustainability to continue with 70% of your energy from renewable sources. I think there's a number of people in here that are invested in this sustainable space and keen to invest in countries that take sustainability seriously. Perhaps we could touch a bit more upon the opportunities that you see beyond energy and plastics reductions of what else might be possible for sustainable investments within Kenya.
Okay. So yes, we are all very keen to ensure that we have peace, unity, understanding amongst all our people, both within Kenya and within the diaspora. And we will continue to do everything that we can to encourage both that discussion to take place, within the diaspora just as much as we're, having it at home. But more so to encourage you also to be investors. And I think the governor of the central bank is here, and we have been talking about trying to develop different instruments, for example, as they have done in India and other countries, where we can get an instrument that diaspora can invest in and then focus themselves on participating with us in the development of some of these key infrastructure, health-related projects. So that's something that we shall do. As to creating a ministry, I think we shall continue to have a department as it is, because you are the same Kenyans who passed the constitution and limited my ability to appoint additional ministers. So we just have to make do with what we have. With regard to sustainable investments, it's not just the energy sector, because as much as we want to continue to encourage investments in the energy sector, but we also are focused on the blue economy. We have huge resources that we are beginning to focus ourselves and to ask ourselves, how can we exploit these resources as opposed to continuing to allow all these illegal fishermen coming from all sorts of places. We want to see how we can work with investors, come in, and in a sustainable way, and working also with local communities, exploit the resources that are available in our seas, in our lakes, in our rivers. So again, that provides a massive opportunity in the housing sector with the green bond, as you just mentioned. That's again another area where I believe we can create additional sustainable employment. The removal, for example, of plastics has made us re-engage in finding different ways of sorting out how do we package our goods, how do our supermarkets, and there are a lot of interesting ideas that are out there and women groups that are trying to work on things, again, in a very sustainable manner, working again with local communities and gaining access. We were in Canada, and it was at a time when I was really pushing because we were having problems with our neighbors and we wanted to close down some of the refugee camps, and we were saying, Kenya is hosting in excess of 1 million refugees with very little support, right? So when you guys are complaining that you have 1,000 who have walked in, so we were saying, well, we can share this burden so that we are all carrying the burden together. But through just putting the point across, we started talking about these, again, are communities, and you can work around those communities and develop programs. And we started talking about, things that we could work on, market access for textiles that are manufactured or stitched by people from those areas and different. So these are all things that if we all put our minds to, we have a lot of potential, while at the same time reducing the footprint or the impact on our environment. Tourism, again, is another area where we are focused again, which is again another sector that has huge potential, huge opportunity, but also can be looked at and again developed in a sustainable manner to support the ecology and the people. And there are a lot of fantastic programs ongoing in the Mara, in Laikipia, and in other parts of the country, where we're having investors working in conjunction with local communities to support. And they're actually proving to be very worthwhile business ventures as well. So, to name but a few.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We have two last questions for you. I wanted to, one of it is touching on about the ease of doing business. We know that Kenya is actually one of the easiest places to do business in the world. It's in the top 25% of places to do business in the world. It's in fact easier to do business in Kenya than it is in Italy, which is part of the G20. And I, from personal experience, was able to build a corporation with over 5,000 employees doing 50 million of exports from Ati River in less than 2 years. So I personally know about the ease of doing business. But I think it would be good to highlight to those that haven't done business there why it is easy to do business, but secondly, why we can do big business there as well. I personally couldn't have built a business of 6,000 people with 50 million of exports in the UK, but I was able to do it with the support of your ministers, the cabinet secretaries, the embassy here, and the relationship that we have. So I think it'd be really interesting for people from your perspective to understand why it's easy to do business and why business can be done in a meaningful and exciting way. And our last question, before you leave us, is you touched on tourism, and Kenya is very much known for its tourism, its environment, its protection environment, and of course its wonderful tea and roses. But what else would you like people to think of when they think of Kenya? Thank you, Your Excellency.
I think the first thing I'd like people to think about is our people. We have the best people in the world, and we're very focused. And that, to me, is what makes Kenya different from any other tourist destination that has exactly the same things we have. What makes Kenya different is the people, it is their hospitality, it is their manner, it is the way they are welcoming, engaged, and the way they perform also when given the opportunity to get jobs and other things like that. So I think that's number one. I think the second thing for me is exactly what you call the enabling environment that we are trying to do. If there's anything else I would want us to get known, is just that enabling environment that does not label us as, you know, one continent, one homogeneous continent. We are not, yeah? To be able to be identified as Kenya and for what we are able to do. You know, we have this unfortunate problem, perception problem, and unfortunately created by the media, that every single day, right? You know, it's the negative aspects of Africa that are brought out there. You know, I keep telling people, you know, sometimes, you know, you watch news, which I've stopped watching, because, and you find Al Jazeera, CNN, Sky, BBC, whichever one you flip to. So they're talking about something that has happened in Rwanda, in South Sudan, in Ethiopia, in Somalia. My friends, sometimes even as far away as Nigeria on the other side of the continent. And then when the guy is signing off, this is John White reporting from Nairobi, Kenya. I like, so everybody now, when the thing that sticks in their mind, Nairobi, Kenya, is where Boko Haram lives and thrives, you know. You know, is where there is hunger and starvation, is where there is, I don't know, because the only is Nairobi, reporting from Nairobi, Kenya. The story is forgotten, it's just Nairobi, Kenya. So, I'd like people to appreciate that as much as we seek African unity, but each country is unique, and I believe Kenya is unique.
Yes.
Yeah, and it should be known for its uniqueness.
Fantastic.
What was the other question?
Well, I think you've covered a lot of it. Just really, just to emphasise to people that Kenya is a place that's very easy to do business and successfully.
Yeah. And I encourage you, like our friend here tried to do 2 years ago, come, see, and you will not be disappointed. Yes, my friend.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm the chairman of Garicha Gold. I know you're
Yes, I am a famous consumer of your product.
Thank you very much. I was very encouraged to meet you 2 years ago. I promised you that we will grow the business.
Yes.
We doubled the exports of Garicha Gold. We are the largest exporter of bulk tea from Kenya auction in the world. The problem is the same that we discussed 2 years ago. Our land in Meritini has been taken over by the rail authorities, and we still have not been compensated. And the EPCF authority have not given us a similar plot of land that we want to double export. I know you're obsessed as we are with value addition, and I want to see every kilo of our 200 million exports go in tea bags rather than in bulk tea. I need this matter resolved so I can actually prove my point.
Aden, that's your business. He now has a week to come back to me and tell me what he's done about it.
Very helpful. I met him in Washington as well. We discussed this point. So
don't worry, he won't attack you.
I don't think that Mark has been in touch with you, but I'll definitely take up the matter.
Aden will follow on my behalf. Yeah? Okay? And he will come back to me and tell me what is done to resolve it.
So this year we have exceeded $250 million worth of tea exports from Kenya auction as well.
And we would love to see that grow, and more and more and more of our tea going through a value addition chain.
You see it in Canada, Garicha Gold, as you can see it in Korea and Japan as well.
Well done.
Your Excellency, His Excellency, the President's time is up. He needs to move to his next location.
Yeah.
I thank you very much for your time. Maybe there'll be 2 or 3 minutes to shake some hands as he leaves before you reconvene for your
So
next session.
Aden
Thank
will
you.
continue, or is it who's continuing?
Yeah, Aden is continuing.
Aden.